Most people believed the Getty fortune meant safety, silence, and control. A shield built from oil, billions, and stone walls. But one English manor proved otherwise. From the cold rooms of Sutton Place, where J Paul Getty lived behind locked phones, counting pennies while owning half the world, to the night in 1973 when his grandson was seized in Rome. This story asks what wealth actually protects. It follows how an estate and a family became trapped in miserliness, isolation, and tragedy, and why the deaths, addictions, and bargains that followed still haunt the idea of legacy. A dynasty that mastered oil and art could not master love, time, or mortality. And the house that sheltered its fortune quietly witnessed the cost. J Paul Getty was born in 1892 in Minneapolis, the only child of George Getty, a lawyer who struck oil in Oklahoma and never forgot what it felt like to be poor. George was a man of iron discipline. He believed waste was sin. He believed comfort made men weak. And he believed his son should earn everything twice, first to prove he deserved it, then to prove he could keep it. Paul, as he was known then, learned early. Money was not for spending. It was for accumulating. It was armor. By the time he was 24, he had made his first million in the oil fields. But his father did not congratulate him. George Getty asked what he planned to do with the second million. That question shaped everything. Through the 1920s and 30s, Paul Getty expanded his operations across California, then the Middle East. He bid on leases others thought worthless. He bought companies during depressions. He moved through the world with the cold logic of someone who viewed affection as expensive and loyalty as a contract that could be renegotiated. He married 5 times. Each marriage ended. He had 5 sons. Each one learned that their father's love arrived in the form of trusts, stipulations, and conditional support. By 1951, Getty was one of the wealthiest men alive. Fortune magazine called him the richest private citizen in America. He needed a fortress to match. He found it in Surrey, England. Sutton Place was built in the 1520s by Sir Richard Weston, a courtier to Henry VIII. It was a Tudor manor of rose-red brick, tall chimneys, and mullioned windows. It sprawled across 72 rooms. It had formal gardens, a moat, stone courtyards, and a long gallery where kings once walked. It had been home to the Duke of Sutherland. It had survived the English Civil War. And by the mid-20th century, it was fraying. Getty bought it in 1959 for what seemed, to him, a reasonable price. He spent years restoring it. He hired craftsmen to repair the brickwork, restore the plasterwork, and replant the gardens in period style. He filled the rooms with Renaissance paintings, Greek sculpture, and French furniture. He installed his collection like a man, building a museum. Every object was cataloged. Every piece had provenance. The walls of Sutton Place became an archive of Western civilization. And yet, Getty refused to heat most of the rooms. He said it was unnecessary. He said English winters built character. Visitors wore coats indoors. He installed payphones in the hallways. Guests who wished to make calls had to use coins. Getty explained this prevented abuse. He explained that discipline applied to everyone, including family. The estate became his headquarters. He ran his empire from a suite of offices on the ground floor. Telex machines clattered. Secretaries typed. Oil prices were monitored hour by hour. But he rarely left the grounds. He took meals alone. He walked the gardens alone. He entertained occasionally, hosting dignitaries and actors and artists. But these gatherings were formal, brief, orchestrated. Sutton Place was not a home. It was a statement. It said, "I have arrived. I have conquered. I need no one." By the mid-1960s, Getty's fortune was estimated at more than $1 billion. He owned refineries, tankers, pipelines, and drilling platforms. His income was so vast, he could not spend it fast enough. And yet he bargained over every invoice. He reviewed every expense report. He questioned every gardener's wage. His sons visited rarely. They knew the rules. Affection was reserved for those who proved useful. Inheritance was a reward, not a right. The oldest son, George, worked in the business but struggled with depression. The second, Ronald, kept his distance. The third, Paul Jr., tried to please his father and could not. The fourth, Gordon, became a composer and avoided the oil entirely. The youngest, Timothy, died at 12 of a brain tumor. Getty mourned Timothy in private. He did not speak of it. He returned to work. Sutton Place grew quieter. The art collection expanded. The staff remained efficient. The hedges were trimmed. The clocks were wound. But the house had become a place where beauty and coldness coexisted without contradiction, where the value of a painting could be recited to the dollar, but the value of presence could not be calculated. This was the height of Getty's power. The world saw success. The family saw distance. And in that distance, something began to fracture. The daily rhythm of Sutton Place followed a strict pattern. Getty woke early. He ate a modest breakfast. He worked until midday. He walked the grounds for precisely 30 minutes. He returned to his desk. He took calls from Los Angeles, Riyadh, and London. He reviewed reports. He signed documents. He ate a simple dinner. He read. He slept. This routine never varied. The staff knew not to interrupt. The secretaries knew which calls to put through and which to deflect. The housekeepers knew which rooms to clean and which to leave undisturbed. Everything was efficient. Nothing was warm. Visitors remarked on the cold. Not just the temperature, though the unheated. Galleries were genuinely frigid in winter. But the atmosphere. The sense that the house was a machine and they were components expected to perform a function. One guest recalled sitting beneath a Rembrandt, shivering, while Getty explained the painting's auction history in meticulous detail. Another remembered asking to use the phone and being handed a handful of coins. These anecdotes became famous. They were repeated in newspapers and biographies. They were treated as eccentricities, charming quirks of a billionaire. But they were not quirks. They were philosophy. Getty believed that money, once given freely, lost its power, that comfort bred dependence, that emotional intimacy was a liability in a world where everyone wanted something. So he withheld. He withheld heat. He withheld access. He withheld approval. And his children learned to navigate a world where love was a transaction and connection required collateral. Paul Jr., the third son, felt this most acutely. He had tried to be the heir his father wanted. He had worked in the oil business. He had married, had children, followed the path laid out for him. But he was sensitive. He loved literature and music. He struggled with the ruthlessness required to manage empires. His father found this weakness unacceptable. Their relationship became transactional. Getty provided money, position, and expectations. Paul Jr. provided effort, compliance, and disappointment. By the late 1960s, Paul Jr. had left the business. He had divorced his first wife. He had remarried, this time to Talitha Pohl, a Dutch actress and model. They moved to Rome. They lived a life of art, fashion, and freedom. They also began using drugs. Talitha died of a heroin overdose in 1971. Paul Jr., devastated, withdrew further. He became reclusive. He sank into addiction. His father did not visit. He sent lawyers. He sent accountants. He sent messages through intermediaries. Getty believed grief was private. That dependency was weakness, that his son needed to recover on his own terms. But Paul Jr. had a son, a boy named J Paul Getty III, born in 1956. He went by Paul. Young Paul was 16 in 1973. He was bright, rebellious, and adrift. His mother, Gail, had divorced Paul Jr. His father was unreachable. His grandfather was an ocean away, living in a cold mansion, counting receipts. Paul spent that summer in Rome. He painted. He wrote. He moved through the nightlife with friends who were artists, drifters, and hustlers. He was charming. He was careless. He was vulnerable. And on the night of July 10th, 1973, he vanished. Inside Sutton Place, the phone rang. A voice demanded $17 million. It said Paul had been taken. It said the family had 3 weeks. Getty's response was immediate and unequivocal. He would not pay. He believed it was a hoax. He believed his grandson had staged the kidnapping to extract money from the family. He believed that paying ransoms encouraged future crimes. He said this to the lawyers. He said this to the investigators. He said this to the press. The kidnappers were members of the Calabrian Mafia, the 'Ndrangheta. They were not bluffing. They held Paul in the mountains of southern Italy. They moved him between safe houses. They fed him little. They kept him chained. Weeks passed. The ransom was not paid. The kidnappers grew frustrated. They sent letters. They sent threats. They demanded proof the family was negotiating in good faith. Getty refused. He calculated the odds. He consulted advisors. He considered the tax implications of a large cash withdrawal. He did not consider what his grandson was enduring. In November, a package arrived at a newspaper office in Rome. Inside was a human ear, and a note. It said, "This is Paul's ear. If you don't pay, the other ear will arrive." Then something worse. The ear was sent to Gail, Paul's mother. She confirmed it was real. The world reacted with horror. The press swarmed. The story became an international scandal. And still, Getty hesitated. He consulted with his lawyers. He argued that paying the full amount would set a precedent. He negotiated. He offered less. He demanded guarantees. Finally, a deal was reached. Getty agreed to pay $2.2 million, the maximum amount he could claim as a tax deduction. He loaned his son, Paul Jr., the remaining $700,000 at 4% interest. The ransom was delivered in December. Paul was released in southern Italy, mutilated and traumatized. He had been held for 5 months. His ear had been severed with a razor blade. He had lived in terror, chained in darkness, uncertain whether anyone cared enough to save him. When he was found, he could barely speak. The kidnapping ended, but the damage did not. Paul returned to Rome. He was 17. He was fragile. He needed care, therapy, and time to recover. What he received was money and distance. Getty Sr. arranged for medical treatment. He ensured the boy had security. He provided funds for housing and support, but he did not visit. He did not call. He did not break his routine. Sutton Place continued as it always had. The art was dusted. The hedges were trimmed. The accounts were balanced. Getty justified his response in interviews. He said he had acted rationally. That sentiment was a luxury, that he had protected the family from future extortion. He said this as though the kidnapping had been a business problem. as though negotiation and restraint were the same as love. The public did not agree. The press called him cold. They called him monstrous. They asked how a man with $1 billion could haggle over his grandson's life. Getty did not respond to the criticism. He believed the world did not understand. He believed discipline was a virtue. He believed he had done what was necessary, but something had shifted. The kidnapping revealed what Sutton Place had always hidden. That wealth, no matter how vast, could not protect against cruelty. That control was an illusion, that the fortress was just a house, and the house was cold. Paul tried to rebuild. He moved between Rome and London. He tried to reconnect with his father, who remained distant and broken. He tried to make sense of what had happened, but the trauma was deep. The drugs came back. The nightmares did not stop. In 1981, 8 years after his release, Paul suffered a stroke. He was 25. The stroke was triggered by an overdose of alcohol and drugs. The stroke left him paralyzed. He lost his ability to speak. He lost his vision. He became dependent on full-time care. He would live another 30 years in this condition, unable to move, unable to communicate, locked inside his own body. Getty Sr. did not live to see this final tragedy. He died in June 1976 at Sutton Place. He was 83. He died in his bed, surrounded by art, attended by staff, alone in the ways that mattered. His fortune was divided among his heirs, museums, and charitable trusts. The bulk of it went to the J Paul Getty Museum in Los Angeles, which became one of the wealthiest cultural institutions in the world. Sutton Place was left to his son, Gordon, but Gordon did not want it. The house carried too many ghosts. It was sold, first to a private buyer, then to the Getty Corporation itself, then, in 1980, to American businessman Stanley J. Seeger, then, in the 1990s, to a series of developers. The house was eventually leased to a private club. The art was dispersed. The rooms were repurposed. The estate that had been a fortress became a venue. The transformation was complete. The house that had symbolized invulnerability was now available for rent. And Paul, the boy who had been taken and mutilated and abandoned by the machinery of wealth, remained trapped in silence. He lived in a care facility. His mother, Gail, visited. His siblings visited. His father, Paul Jr., eventually emerged from his own addiction and became a philanthropist. He gave millions to British charities. He was knighted, but he could not undo what had been done. Paul III died in 2011. He was 54. The official cause was complications from his long-term disability. But the deeper cause was written into the architecture of his family, into the logic of Sutton Place, into the belief that wealth could substitute for presence, that control could substitute for care. The kidnapping had not been the beginning of the tragedy. It had been the revelation of a tragedy already in progress. What remains of the Getty fortune is vast and visible. The J. Paul Getty Museum houses one of the finest art collections in the world. The Getty Villa replicates an ancient Roman estate. The Getty Center sits on a hilltop in Los Angeles, a monument to culture and permanence. Visitors walk through galleries filled with paintings and sculptures and manuscripts. They admire the architecture. They read plaques that describe the provenance of each object. They do not see the cold rooms of Sutton Place. They do not hear the clatter of the payphone. They do not imagine the boy chained in the mountains, waiting for a rescue that almost did not come. The public legacy is clean. It is philanthropic. It is respectable. But the private legacy is more complicated. Paul Jr. spent the final decades of his life trying to atone. He donated to hospitals, libraries, and the arts. He funded the restoration of historic buildings. He gave his wealth away as though generosity could erase the past. He was praised for this. He was honored. He died in 2003, a changed man. But his son remained paralyzed. His grandson remained traumatized. The fractures in the family did not heal. Gordon Getty became a composer and philanthropist. He managed the family trust. He lived quietly. He did not speak publicly about his father. The other branches of the Getty family scattered. Some thrived. Some struggled. Some sought privacy. The fortune was divided and subdivided, managed by trustees and lawyers, filtered through foundations and estates. The name survived, but the unity did not. Sutton Place, meanwhile, changed hands again and again. It was leased to corporate clients. It hosted events. It became a backdrop for weddings and conferences. The rooms where Getty had lived were repainted. The offices were converted. The gardens were open to the public. The house, which had been a symbol of control, became a symbol of impermanence. The fortress dissolved. And in that dissolution, a question lingers. What was the point of all that accumulation, all that discipline, all that restraint? Getty believed he was building something that would last, a fortune that would endure, a legacy carved in stone and oil. But legacies are not built in vaults. They are built in relationships, in the way we treat the people who depend on us, in the warmth we offer or withhold. Getty protected his wealth, but he did not protect his family. He saved pennies, but he could not save his grandson. He lived in a palace, but he died alone. The tragedy of the Getty story is not that the fortune was lost. It was not. The museums thrive. The trusts distribute millions. The name endures. The tragedy is that the fortune was never enough, that all the art and all the oil and all the discipline in the world could not fill the space where love should have been. Paul III spent 30 years unable to speak, unable to move, unable to escape the consequences of choices he did not make. His grandfather spent a lifetime refusing to yield, refusing to soften, refusing to believe that connection mattered more than control. And Sutton Place stood witness. It absorbed the silence. It recorded the cold. It held the portraits and the sculptures and the antiques. And when the family left, it released them all. The house is still there. The bricks are still red. The chimneys still rise. The rooms still echo with the footsteps of visitors who do not know the full story. But the ghosts remain, not the ghosts of kings or dukes, but the ghosts of a family that had everything except the one thing wealth cannot buy: the ability to forgive, the willingness to yield, the courage to choose love over ledgers. Getty built an empire, but he could not build a home. He mastered markets, but he could not master mercy. And in the end, the house he filled with treasures became a monument to what he could not save. That is the legacy, not the museums, not the billions, but the empty rooms, the unanswered calls, the boy who waited in the dark for a rescue measured not in love, but in tax deductions. Wealth without mercy is not protection. It is a prison. And the walls, no matter how beautiful, cannot hold out the truth. Some things cannot be bought. Some losses cannot be recovered. Some silence cannot be filled. And some houses, no matter how grand, are just houses in the end. The Getty story is one of many. History is full of estates that promised permanence and delivered ghosts, of fortunes that outlasted the families who built them. of houses that could not hold what mattered most. If you found this story compelling, there are others worth exploring. The Vanderbilt mansions, the Hearst Castle, the Rothschild estates. Each one tells a different version of the same question. What survives? Let me know in the comments which estate you would like to see next. And if this story resonated with you, consider subscribing. There is always another house, another family, another fortune, and another truth hidden in the walls. Thank you for watching.